This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
So I think if you suspect your friend's going through infertility, you can say, I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. And you can also say, do you want to talk about it? And they could say no. Or if you know they're going through something, you can just say, I'm here for you. Do you want me to ask you about it? Or do you want to just bring it up when you want to bring it up? Because people are different.
Welcome to the Parent Footprint Podcast with Dr. Dan. I am your host, Dr. Dan, and let me tell you about our mission at Parent Footprint. That is to make the world a more loving and compassionate place, one parent and one child at a time. We believe the key to raising happy, healthy, and engaged kids is for us parents to seek the same in our own life: happiness, health, and engagement. We also believe that awareness is the foundation for your vision of successful parenting, and with increased awareness and intention, we can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint on our children. Today's show is all about being completely purposeful about your child and having children. The title of the show is The Trying Game: Get through fertility treatment and get pregnant without losing your mind, with our esteemed guest and author, Amy Klein. Amy, you might have read Amy's New York Times Fertility Diary, following her real and harrowing 4-year journey to have a baby after 10 doctors in 3 countries with 9 rounds of IVF and 4 miscarriages. Amy's health and science journalism background helps her bring to light the ups and downs of trying, which she has encapsulated in her brand new book, the title of the show, The Trying Game. And Amy lives in New York City with her husband and daughter. She loves the water and misses living in the beach in Venice, California. However, she has sold her surfboard. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Dan.
So, we were talking about there's a big difference between New York and the West Coast these days with what we're all living with, and we're glad you are safe and healthy.
Yes, I'm safe and healthy, but being in New York is the constant worry that you're not.
Yeah, I understand. And since you brought up worrying, you have a lot to tell us about quite a process. For any of us, most of us know someone who has gone through some sort of process and difficulty getting pregnant. And while there are all sorts of new methods out there, as you will attest and tell us, there is no foolproof method. And boy, is it a psychological, emotional, just journey at every level of the game.
Yeah, I mean, my dark joke is, oh my God, what's worse than infertility is infertility during a pandemic.
That's good and dark. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really rough, and whether you're going through treatment and you're doing IUI or IVF, or even if you're just, it takes you a year to get pregnant at home. It sounds nice in retrospect after you had your child. You're like, oh yeah, it took me a year to get pregnant. But a year is like 12 months, and that's every 12 months, it's 2 weeks of wondering if you're pregnant or not. So that's a lot of worrying, and that's a lot of panic. Even before you start treatment, they recommend if you're under 35 to wait a year before seeing a specialist, and if you're over 35 to wait 6 months. I don't necessarily agree with those recommendations. But, because I believe that you should, make that time as short as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because obviously you don't want to spend any more money than you have to, but you also have to take into amount of time, the emotional time spent worrying and trying and, like even just, 1 month that you're not pregnant, okay, it's a little disappointing, but then the next month you try and then you have to wait 2 weeks and then you have to wait again. And it really takes a toll on you emotionally. So, I always say I can't get people pregnant, but I just want them to get there faster.
Mm-hmm. Take us back to your journey, and I mean, there's so much learning and suffering along the way. I mean, going to literally the ends of different parts of the globe and the earth to have your child, and all the losses along the way, the grief, the suffering, and we'll talk about, and the impact on marriage. I mean, so tell us about your journey.
So I got pregnant right away after I got married at 41, and then I lost that pregnancy, and it wasn't like, it felt like a very late period because I didn't even make it to the doctor, and she was like, "Yep, you were pregnant. Just try again." So we took off a month to go on our honeymoon, and then we tried again and we got pregnant right away again. So it seemed like it was going to be a happy ending story, right? No book, no column in the New York Times, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lost that baby at 10 weeks. And that's when I started hitting the fertility circuit. And then I started, IUI, which I call the turkey baster. And we started IVF, and I got pregnant again with IVF, and I lost that again. So it's just this weird, I always say this, the science changes. It changes as I wrote my book, it was changing.
Mm-hmm.
Even some things that I was thinking about 5 years ago are not necessarily the same, but the emotional journey is still the same. It's like you think it's going to be easy, you think it's going to be inexpensive, and then you think the hard part is going to come with the parents, and you spend all this time deciding if you want to be a parent, and then you think it should be easy, right? And then it's not easy, and then you're like, oh shoot, am I going to have fertility issues? What does that mean? Do I have to learn the whole, sometimes it feels like there's this expectation to know everything about fertility right from the start. And then you have like this emotional journey of just regrets. Oh my God, I should have started trying earlier. I shouldn't have waited so long. Should have, would have, could have. I should have married that other guy.
Right.
And then you start, the real bare bones of fertility, like paying for treatment, and then things don't work out. I mean, that's like, despite my dark joke of the pandemic, it's like fertility is just an exercise in things being out of your control and not working out the way you planned and on your timeline. And, the pandemic is a horrible thing, but someone told me, she said, oh, it really feels like God doesn't want me to have a baby. So, then we moved to Israel for some more IVF with genetic testing because it was free because we're citizens. And that didn't work either. And we finally moved on to donor eggs. And that didn't work either because I had a special repeat miscarriage condition that was only treatable by a special repeat miscarriage doctor. And so after I did his treatment, after, 4 years, I finally, my fifth pregnancy was my daughter almost 5 years ago.
So I'm pausing. I mean, that condensed story I know is, there's a lot.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to, I don't know how long to go on for. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's just so much in your story on this path. And so now, given all of the science and given what you know from your experience, what do you recommend? Like, what is the latest thinking on fertility and aging?
So, obviously it's usually better to start younger, and it's usually better if you're under 35, but there are plenty of people over 35 and there are plenty of people over 40 who get pregnant with their first kid because you only count your first kid. So there are plenty of people who have great fertility. You could be 40 with the fertility of a 30-year-old, and you can also be 30 with the fertility of a 40-year-old. And it's really individual. It depends on your genetics. It depends on your lifestyle. My recommendation after everything is just how little we women know about our bodies and our reproduction system. We learn only about how not to get pregnant, and that's basically it. And when our period comes, we don't know much more than that. And the stories that I've told just reinforces that. Like someone who's much older, who never had kids, who I'm working with, she told me that when she was in high school, she just used to have to take a week off because of the pain of her period. And she didn't learn until she started trying many, many, many years later that she had endometriosis. Because people kept telling her, oh yeah, it's normal to have pain during your period. I can't tell you how many women I meet in their 30s or late 30s who are like, oh yeah, I don't get my period at all, or I get it every other month, or I have so much pain, or yeah, I visited a gynecologist in my 20s and she said I had a fibroid, but I don't have to worry about it. So like maybe those things are changing, and that would be amazing if they were, but I feel like every woman in their 20s should know, and we should talk about what it means to have a healthy reproductive system, whether you're planning on having children or not. Do you have painful periods? Do you skip your periods? Are they unusually heavy? Did your mother have like a million miscarriages? What's your family history? Did your grandmother have kids until she was 48? I mean, none of those things are guaranteed, but like, I wish that first stop, I wish like everyone upon graduating college, or maybe like a college course would be like all you need to know, both for men and women, about your body, not only how not to get pregnant, but like, it's super shocking when you find out, I could only get pregnant probably like 4 to 5 days a month. Like, I remember a time I was so freaked out because, I thought I was pregnant, but it was like 2 days after my period. So it was super unlikely, but I just didn't know. I didn't really know that,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's because of the Puritan culture we live in. I don't know if it's, gynecologists are just focused on offering birth control, but like, I don't want people to get to their first fertility appointment and have to learn the whole of reproduction at once. And I just want, I want us all, we're all empowered people. We know so much about so many things. I want us to just know about, okay, this is the way the body works. This is when you can get sex. This is your conception window when you can get pregnant.
Right.
And, this is how eggs work and aging work. There's a big disservice in society when you see all these celebrities getting pregnant at 50 or having babies at 48, their first kid.
Right.
And I get it, and I've written about it. Like, I get why they're not public about their journey, whether they used a surrogate or they used not their eggs, they used donor eggs. It's their business, but people just think, oh, I'll just do IVF and I'll get pregnant. Like, they just think it's this trick, and then they get there and they're like, holy mother of God, this is expensive. It hardly works on the first time. It might not work with my own eggs, so it's a lot of shock that people go through. So I really just want people to be on top of their fertility.
And that's why you said, I mean, one of the things you said about your book is you wrote a book that you wish you had. And as you're talking, I'm saying not only for people who are on the road of struggling with infertility, but it sounds like this is for high school and college. Like this is essential health, sex education, reproductive education.
I could go into a college and do a course, then I would.
Yeah.
With the reproductive and all. I don't want to scare people, and people always ask me like, what do I think of egg freezing? And part A of what I think of egg freezing is what I just told you, is like, I don't care if you ultimately freeze your eggs or don't freeze your eggs. That's a personal decision based on a lot of things like cost, who's paying for it, how much you want to have kids, what are the success rates? What are your personal hormonal levels? Is it worth it? So there's a lot of cost, but before you even get to egg freezing, like, I want you to have all the information you need before you decide to freeze your eggs. I want you to know, I want you to go at 32 to your doctor and say, give me my hormonal assay for fertility, and I want you to have that number like, oh my God, your eggs are declining rapidly. So then you can make that decision. But I want you to understand, I think most people, and myself included, and the technology wasn't there, but most people just kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to have kids, or I want to have kids one day, so I'm not going to even think about it. Like, get those numbers just like you would get your blood pressure numbers. You get your weight. You know your weight. Every woman knows her weight, and she can name the year. If you tell her a year, she can tell you her weight.
Yeah. So how do you get that number for those novice people like me out there? How do you
go
get
to your
number?
gynecologist and you say, I'd like a hormonal panel for I'd like my AMH and FSH, and I'd like you to do a egg count. And she might tell you what day to come back. She might poo-poo you. If she poo-poos you and says you're young, you might want to find another gynecologist. But because I know people who have started, and there's also like at-home testing. There are companies like Klein's Body that will do the testing for you. So you can just ask your gynecologist, say, I'm interested in learning more about my fertility, how it works, and I'd really like an examination, an intrauterine examination to make sure that everything's fine inside. And I want to know my hormonal levels.
And then once you find out, again, I just want to go with this because this is the basic information that you need to be teaching in high school and colleges. So what should people do when they get there? Like, what's the mindset based on the number they get?
Well, most people are going to be fine, but then they'll get the education like, okay, your AMH is 3, and that's exactly where you should be at your age. Maybe have it checked. You're 30, maybe have it checked at 33 or 34. You don't have a split uterine. You don't have any fibroids. You don't look like you have endometriosis. I mean, I think, there's, I think 1 in 7 women or something have endometriosis, and it takes like 7 years for this. And that's where the uterine lining, there's something wrong with it. It's growing abnormally. And it can cause very heavy bleeding and painful periods. And most people don't even think to even bring that up with their gynecologist. Like, oh my God, my period is crazy, or oh my God, my period's not coming. Like, know your menstrual cycle, know how it works. Then, you'll be ahead of the game when it comes to trying. Like, if you only have a 21-day menstrual cycle, there might be something wrong, and you might want to work on that to fix it. So it's like if you were preparing for a marathon, I would just sit down with my gynecologist and say, I want a full body workup. I don't know if I want to have kids, but I just want to make sure that everything's working before, so I'd rather deal with anything at 30 than at 40.
Nice. Okay.
And then you can say, tell me about the pros, and after they get the number back, right? Because she can say, tell me the pros and cons of egg freezing. And then once you have that number, like your number, let's say your AMH is actually very low, and you're only 30, she might say, you know what? If you want to have kids, I'd either freeze eggs or maybe start thinking about having that kid right now. But like if you don't have those numbers and they're just going on crazy, averages, and you might be the outlier, and you don't want to be the outlier.
There's so I've just finished this book that my wife had given me a long time ago, and I finally got to it. It's called Do Fathers Matter? And this is written by, you might have heard of this, by a science journalism like yourself. And he gets very scientific. And what made me think of it is you basically said, maybe I should have married a different guy. And all of the science, so much science is on moms, and with unfortunately a lot of mom, over responsibility on moms. And what I was educated about in this book was how much the age of the father and the father's genetics, how much that goes into everything we're talking about when it comes to having a baby, making a baby, what kind of baby, and the developmental trajectory. So I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts about that as well? Because obviously the moms are the ones that get all of this attention when things aren't working out a lot of the times.
Yeah, so I do have a whole chapter on male factor infertility. And, if you don't have any sperm, obviously, that's going to matter. In the book, in the chapter on male factor infertility, a specialist in San Francisco, a urologist, says that he thinks it's like so wildly underdiagnosed because he views fertility doctors, they're just going to bypass the bad sperm. So this, I also, a man's age matters, but it doesn't matter as much as the woman's. And there are studies that show an increase in autism and schizophrenia in older fathers, but that might be comparing a 45-year-old sperm to a 25-year-old sperm. And those are not significant. I mean, those are statistically significant numbers, but they're not, you could say it's like a 50% increase between, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but you could say it's a 50% increase between a 50-year-old father and a 25-year-old father, but that could mean only like an extra 1,000 people. If the numbers wise, it's not a crazy amount of numbers. And I didn't read this book, and I don't know what science this guy's showing. There is an increase in a father's age to proclivities to some disorders like autism and schizophrenia, and also more significantly, time to conception. So how long it takes you to get pregnant. An older sperm will take longer to get pregnant, but it still does fall on the woman. So if you have an older man and an older woman, that double whammy is not great. If you have an older man and a 20-year-old woman, we've seen them perfectly having lots of kids. You know what I mean?
And People magazine all the time. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then also, the truth is that the father, sometimes you go to a fertility clinic and they say your sperm is fine. And I don't know if that means your sperm is just, in fact, good enough for fertility treatment. Like, we're just going to find that one little guy and stick him in there. Or is it really like excellent?
Got it.
But when you have male factor infertility, a lot of times the burden anyway falls on the woman, unless you, like, some men have to do testicular surgery to extract sperm. But the woman still, even if she has nothing wrong with her, she's going to have to go through fertility treatment. But in answer to your question, a man should also know his reproductive history.
Right.
A man should know if his father had trouble conceiving. If he had any trouble, if he had any mumps. I have a checklist in there. If he had mumps as a child, if he had cancer treatment, these things, a man should know about his fertility too, and a man should know how a woman's body works. So that college course is not only for women; it's for men and women.
Exactly. And as you said, it seems like the burden always falls on women and mothers anyways. So we need to lighten the load where we can and share some of the responsibility here.
Sure.
What would you say, what is your feeling about life after infertility and miscarriage? How does that from your perspective impact mothering, parenting?
Well, it's like, I kind of said, like, when you run a marathon, you prepare for the marathon and then you train for it, you give up alcohol, at least I did, and, you go to sleep early and then you run the marathon and it's over and then you celebrate. But, like, you go through this long journey of infertility, then you have the baby and it's not over. Everything's just beginning. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I say, and I say, like people say, there's a silver lining to infertility. You're so appreciative of your daughter. And I say, no, I would have loved to have skipped those 4 years. I would have loved to have just gotten pregnant, my first or second pregnancy, had the baby and gone into it with fresh eyes. I mean, we had 4 years of not only financial trouble, but emotional trouble and fighting and learning about each other, and some couples don't make it and some couples do, but I think, I'm sure my husband and I would have learned about our coping styles through parenthood anyway, but you're starting off, I think, a little bit of a disadvantage because you have so much of that wear and tear. It's like starting parenting with a new car, with an old car rather than a new car.
Mm-hmm.
It's like starting parenting with an old car rather than a new car.
Right. So it's not a lot of silver lining. It's really hard, and there's a ton of shrapnel, and you get out on the other side and you're exhausted and forlorn and traumatized.
And I'm happy and excited, but also traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those movie scenes, it's so funny when you see in the movies, the montage, oh, you got your positive pregnancy test, then next you're rubbing your belly, then you're in the hospital with this beautiful bundle. I mean, that's not how real pregnancy works in any case. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe that's how it works from the man director's eyes.
Oh, yes. Nice and clean and beautiful. So what do you, is there recovery? Yeah, I mean, how is the recovery process? If we can talk about recovery that way.
I think, along with all those bad things, there is definitely a sense of gratitude, like a constant gratitude. Even like now during this pandemic when it's decibel, glass breaking decibel around here, sometimes you got to be like, oh my God, I'm happy that I'm quarantined with my daughter than the opposite. So there's a lot of gratitude, and also maybe some of the things of early motherhood that maybe some young mothers like, oh my God, how do I leave the house? There's so much stuff. I can't deal with no sleep. I mean, that's like, you're suffused with so much gratitude that you might not have the same worries as other first-time mothers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what I talk about in the last chapter, which is IVF after loss and infertility, is like, okay, you might not be able to enjoy your pregnancy the way other people have because that has been robbed from you because you're so nervous the whole time. And you might have some feelings after. There's no study that showed an increase in postpartum depression after infertility. Mm-hmm. But I think that most of us are scarred, whether it's from pregnancy loss or infertility. And I mean, the main advice in my book is like, if I wanted to sum it up in a word, is like, accept all your feelings. Like, this is a judgment-free zone. Like, don't tell me to be happy during pregnancy. Don't tell me at least blah, blah, blah. At least, you finally got pregnant, or at least, all feelings are okay. And maybe sometimes, you'll be jealous, even if you have a baby, of like that person who got pregnant so naturally, or maybe, I'll be jealous because I didn't get to use my own eggs. Feelings are just feelings. And like, I think the sooner that you just accept that things are not like they look on Instagram or social media, and they're not black and white, and it's the same thing with parenting. On the one hand, you have all those wonderful parenting montages, and on the other hand, you have the people who are like bitching about it 24/7. And it's kind of somewhere in between. It's great and it's horrible.
Right. And I like accept all your feelings, everyone listening. Accept all your feelings. I mean, that's very wise. And no doubt a lot of emotions are put on people in these situations. Or, aren't you happy? It's finally here. Why are you sad? And, frankly, that sounds like a bunch of BS as we talk about this. No, not knowing what someone has gone through to get to that point, and knowing that it's still a road from there on out. And I'm wondering, Amy, you talked about the stress on marriage, and that's something that I think a lot of people need to understand as normal in these circumstances. And yes, some people don't make it. What did you learn, and what do you recommend?
I think, it's this kind of fast forward on who your partner is that you might not learn till much later. You might not learn until you have the baby, whenever that is. Like, in a quote unquote fertile couple, they might learn things later on, like how you deal with bad things happening to you. And I think it's important, whether it's during infertility or early parenting is kind of to recognize A, what your expectations are, and B, who your partner is. And, I've spoken to a lot of women who are like, he doesn't want to, he's totally all in. He'll go for the infertility. He doesn't want to talk about like finding the doctor or my egg count or, how many embryos or which doctor we should go to. He just wants me to do it, and he'll just, he wants to support me, but he doesn't, like, he's traveling around the world and he just can't deal with this right now. And sometimes I say, what, your partner is not always your partner in this. Like, find a fertility best friend. Find someone, you could hire a consultant who helps you with the emotional journey and the physical journey. Like, if you ask me right now, December 2014, what IVF cycle were you up to? How many eggs you got? I would be able to tell you that as well. Mm-hmm. My husband would not. And I had some friends, ironically, like my gay best friend in LA, who is never having children, is not interested in parenting. He was kind of my point person, which is funny, but like I could just be like crying, oh my God, one of my tubes is blocked. And he could just be there and just be like, oh, that sucks. And he didn't have any judgment because he didn't be like, oh, you should have started 10 years earlier. Like, he didn't care. He just wanted me to be happy. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the support you need is not always from your partner. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to ask your partner for what you need. Like, I really need you to come with me to every appointment, even though it seems dumb to you. I really need you to look at this research.
I think that's important. I think that's really important. I can just think back on when we were having especially our first child, and there were the stacks of books next to my wife's bed, and there were things that I was, I think in hindsight, was supposed to be reading, but I couldn't wrap my mind around being at the place of reading about development and such. And again, it wasn't that I wasn't an involved person or a caring person. It was that I just wasn't there. And I didn't find out later that it was really important to her for me to read, to show that I was like, she could see I was involved as much as she felt. And you figured that out later. But that's just making me think in this much more acute situation, how important it is to tell partners what you need, because as you people know, men, when we're talking about men here, are not always keenly aware, and it's not just with men. We can't read other people's minds, right? Even the best female partners can't read our partner's mind. So I just think it's so important. It sounds so simple, but rather than waiting for someone to kind of get the hint, in these stressful circumstances, I just think it's such an important factor. What you're saying is say what you need. Now, again, if they don't do it after that, we got something else going on.
Well, if your wife would have said to you, and she said, read these books, and like, you really are not going to read these books, right? Like you said, you're going. There was that. Remember? I don't know if you me, but Knocked Up with Seth Rogen. He had she finds all the books in the back.
Totally.
So that's what I also mean about learning who your partner is, and maybe like my husband would be like, I'm not going to read the book. Can you just sum them up for me or read me? Like, oh, maybe we could read them together. Maybe you could read like important parts of it. So that's a little bit about learning, and also learning about yourself. Because like I know some people whose partners just did all the research and did everything, and then presented it with them and said, okay, this is what we're doing. Just sign on the dotted line. I wouldn't have been. That's not me. I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I might say I wanted my husband to do everything, but I would have been the one going down the rabbit hole of Google at the time when there wasn't that much out there. So who are you and who are they? And that's what I mean, learning about your marriage. And that helps when you're getting to parenting, because I'm still maybe the person who does the deep dive and then presents him with some of the summaries and stuff.
That sounds very helpful. That would work for me too. So what you're basically talking about is, for couples to really kind of know who you're dealing with and be openly communicate about what's needed, and then what are ways that someone can be on board in the way that also works for both people.
Right. And it's not really that hard to go to appointments, even if they're dumb appointments. Right.
Yes, definitely go to those appointments for sure. I want to get to the idea of envy here. And there is, of course, baby envy. And it being Mother's Day approaching, of course, that's got to be a tough holiday for people who are don't yet have their child. What are your thoughts on how the envy plays out and how to deal with it?
Yeah, so like now in particular, I mean, envy is for everyone. I don't know even if you're seeing this from the male perspective, but from the female perspective, it's at an all-time high. Oh, the married people are like, what are you single people complaining about? You ran out of Netflix shows, like I have kids at home. And then the fertility people are like, what are you, the single people might be like, what are you complaining about? You have at least someone to quarantine with. And then the fertility people are looking at everybody and being like, I would kill to be with kids right now, so that's
right.
Since we're all stuck on this social media bubble, like not bubble, we're all stuck on social media in the fishbowl looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely not hard for fertility people right now. And then with Mother's Day coming up, it's just like, oh my God, I'm going to have to see a tribute to every single mother while my fertility treatment might have been suspended or it might be restarting. And, I've been furloughed, I have no money and I have no kids, so
it's tough.
Tough for everyone, especially people who want children and can't have them during this time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people who don't want children are really kind of gleeful and happy and laughing at all of us parents.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, I've had moments where like I stepped on the subway in New York City back when you could still walk on the subway, and I walked on the subway and a homeless woman got on and she was like, I'm hungry, I'm homeless, and I'm pregnant. And I said to my friend, really? Like her too? Oh my God, I can't. And I know my friend thought I was like the most awful person in the world. Like I was making fun of the homeless person.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't making fun of her. It was just like, wherever you go, you're confronted with, it feels like everyone else is being pregnant besides you.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels really unfair that it's something that you want and you might have tried so hard for, you might have spent so much money on, you might have planned your whole life around this one event, and it feels elusive and it's out of your reach and you can't have it. And that's where accept your feelings and feel your feelings really comes from, because these are not, baby envy, pregnancy envy is not an acceptable feeling. It's not sanctioned in society. It wasn't even sanctioned. That's kind of what's touched off. I think that was my first column in the New York Times, was like, my husband was like, why can't you be happy for her? It's not like her pregnancy takes away from your pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I can't. I'm not happy for her. Like, I'm just not. Sorry, I'm not that good a person.
Right.
And I see, that's one of the inspirations that made me decide to write this book, because originally I thought I was going to write a memoir about my own experiences. And then I kind of kept seeing, when I started, there was no Facebook groups devoted to every level of pregnancy, like infertile, endometriosis, repeat miscarriage, donor eggs. Like now you can find a dedicated Facebook group for every particular diagnosis. But back in 2011 and 12, there was definitely nothing like that. But as I've been watching the groups over the years, it's the biggest question around. Like, my best friend wants me to throw her a shower and she's mad at me that I can't do it. My sister-in-law just keeps flaunting her pregnancy in my face. My mother or mother-in-law won't leave me alone, and I don't want to tell her that we're going through fertility treatment. So this whole idea of like the social aspect of infertility, like how do you deal with baby envy? Right. And I say in my book, like, if you think going to all these parties, baby showers, bachelorette parties, weddings, brisses, bar mitzvahs, if you think it's going to make you a better person, then go. But like, I went to all these things and it didn't make me a better person. And, that's where you need to accept that this is an ugly emotion. These are mean thoughts. I have a therapist in that chapter who she calls them mean thoughts. And, she tells her patients, why should you be happy for her? I wouldn't be happy for her if she was pregnant and I wasn't. You don't have to be happy for her. So that's like such a relief to hear.
Right.
And I always say act happy and do voodoo in private.
That's good.
So one. Yeah. Look, I want to tell you something. My sister, after my fourth miscarriage, which was like so devastating because it was with a donor egg and it was supposed to be my guarantee for a baby. It was supposed to be my slam dunk. So the level of my devastation, I mean, I went from New York to Los Angeles and I cried for the whole 5.5-hour flight in the window. Just to give you a visual. My sister had just told me she was pregnant. And my younger sister, and she had had 2 miscarriages before, so it's not like she didn't deserve it, right? My sister had just told me she was pregnant, and my brother told me he was expecting his 5th kid.
Oh, gosh.
So, and I just was like, oh my God, the thing that was supposed to work, like, you're never going to be a mother. Right. And, my sister told me on the phone, and I said, oh, I'm so happy for you. And then she started describing her pregnancy symptoms, like, oh, I'm a little depressed. And I was like, I was thinking like, oh, I was lying when I said I was happy for you. So please don't go on and on about this. Like, I can't be your big sister right now.
Right.
I don't have it in me. And I think when you're going through infertility and people say, oh, why can't you be happy for her? And you can just say, I don't have any happiness in me right now. Like, I just don't have it. And I'm sorry. And I've been a great big sister to my sister, my younger sister, but I couldn't then. And that's when I hopped on the plane. Like, I'm just like, I can't. And I don't even think that we had the discussion about it. I think my mother said something to me like I should really be more involved. And I just kind of blew her off because I was like, I can't. Like, I'm sure I'm going to love that baby when it comes. Right. But it's just too much for me to handle. And that's like, for parenting and infertility, you gotta take care of yourself and what you can handle and not listen to like what emotions you're supposed to have. And it's okay to be upset about someone else's pregnancy and sadness for yourself. And, maybe you don't go through 9 months of it. Maybe you just deal with it and like you say to yourself, okay, I can't be there the way I want to be there. And I even have a letter in the book, like, dear pregnant girlfriend, like, I'm sorry. I know we've been through everything together. This is too much for me. And I'm sorry about it.
Yeah, and being kind to yourself, like you're saying, like being human. Like, that's the most human. It's just so human. Like, I don't have happiness in me right now. I mean, I feel, so thank you for saying that for everyone who this applies to, who's listening, and that it's normalizing the sadness, the grief, the loss, the depression, the anger. It's real. And it's how can you not feel that way?
And I get it from the other side because, when I was finally pregnant and it stuck, I get the hormonal feeling of wanting to share it with the universe and I get the other side, like wanting to share it with the universe and wanting to be, want everybody to be in this joyous part with you. Right. One of my best friends that I've known since growing up, I don't even remember, I don't know where I was in the journey, but she called me one day and she just said, listen, I want you to know that I'm expecting, and this was also her 5th child. She said, I want you to know that I'm expecting. You don't have to be happy for me. I just needed to let you know. And I still cry when I think about it because that was like the nicest thing that anyone has ever said to me. Like, I don't need you to be happy for me. I'm just telling you. And I said, thanks.
Just took all the pressure off, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I have before we're almost to the parent footprint moment question, but I have one more question first to ask you because it's led up to this, which is, so how do you suggest people talk to people who are dealing with infertility, right? You're on both sides, you're the expert. Like, how should they view that person, treat that person, talk to that person?
Look, not everybody's me, and I can't say what I needed is what everybody else needed. So I think if you suspect your friend's going through infertility, you can say, are you having, like, I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. And you can also say, do you want to talk about it? And they could say no. And you can also say, or if they're going through something, you can just say, I'm here for you. Do you want me to ask you about it, or do you want to just bring it up when you want to bring it up? Because people are different. Some people might get offended if you don't ask, and some, like for me, my mantra was, I'll tell you when there's something to tell you. And like, don't ask if I'm pregnant. And I, even though I was writing about it for the New York Times, like, I didn't tell anybody when was my retrieval, when was my transfer, because the last thing I wanted was like, okay, I had a failed transfer in IVF, and then I have to tell 10 people waiting by the phone.
Totally.
But other people are different. Other people want their mom on board and want to know every up and down. So I think, and it's the same thing with probably anything. Like, I'm here for you. How can I help you? What do you need? Do you want to talk about it? Do you not want to talk about it? And then in terms of the pregnancy announcement, I always feel like email is definitely the best way. So you don't have to have it in person or force a kind of reaction. Like, I get it. I'm pregnant. I just want you to know. Let me know how involved you want to be in this journey. I hope it will happen for you soon as well.
Right. Kind of. So it's like a lot of, I'm hearing first neutral, not high emotion, and also with knowing that everyone will handle it differently, will want to talk differently, and giving them the opportunity to kind of own and be in charge of that.
I mean, maybe more emotion, depending on your friendship. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That sucks. It's so terrible. Tell me what I can do. Obviously, don't talk about adoption. Don't talk about your friends, your miracle friends who got pregnancy after eating pineapple. Don't talk about this amazing rabbi or like shaman or doctor. Like, don't offer advice, because someone going through infertility likely has heard it or will hear it all.
Yep, got it. Okay, Amy, it's time for the parent footprint moment question. Tell us about a time when you became aware of yourself as an individual or a parent, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your child.
So I've been thinking about this, and I always thought, I wasn't sure I was going to have children because I didn't have great parenting from my parents. And when I started going through infertility and I started having miscarriages, and I was like, should I continue with this journey or not continue? A part of me said, I want to be a parent because I don't want to be stuck in my own past, like just dealing with my own parenting issues. I feel like the only way to get over my past and to get over everything is to have my own family, because otherwise I'll just be like always thinking about my parents and things like that. And I also like wanted to know, like, I wanted to kind of be put in my parents' shoes, like, oh, what were they thinking? What were they going through? And I can't really do that unless I'm a parent myself. And I was hoping for a boy, because I thought a girl would bring up too much like mothering issues for me of my own mother. And I thought that would send me straight back into therapy, like just being a parent and then realizing like, oh my God, how could my parents have treated me this way? But like, I think it was one day my daughter was like 2.5, and she was, pinching my cheeks and saying, I love you, mommy. And I just realized, like, I know what it's like to be a mom, but I can't go back there. Like, I don't go back and be like, oh my God, how did my mother treat me? How did my mother do her laissez-faire parenting? When she has this beautiful butterball inside of her, like, I couldn't go back in time. And I just realized, like, I thought, having a daughter would repair my past maybe in a certain way, or like give me a greater understanding into my own childhood. But I don't. When my daughter looks at me and is like, I love you, mommy, and she kisses me, I don't know. I thought that would give me an understanding of like how it feels for me to say that to my mother, or would bring up some loss. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't. It hasn't made me go back there, and it hasn't made me understand what it's like to have that kind of parents. So the way that I think it affects my parenting is, it's kind of like a clean slate. Like all the things that I thought that I thought I would bring up all these issues of my own mother and having mother issues, and I don't. I just have this like blank slate. Like I still kind of don't know. I don't know what it's like to have, my daughter's a single child. I don't know what it's like to have your parents at your beck and call, and to know when my daughter was a baby, one of my best friends had met her at like maybe 7 or 8 months, and she said, "Oh my God, you could tell this kid knows she's loved," which is so beautiful. And, my daughter is super loved. Maybe she's spoiled, but she's totally loved.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. That's so key. That's so key. I just reflecting on what you're saying, a huge part of Parent Footprint is awareness of where we came from so we could be purposeful about how we parent. And you just embodied that, right? So you're very aware of what your childhood was like and what you wanted to be different. And you thought your child would bring you a certain kind of repair so you can look back. But I think it sounds like she's brought you a different kind of repair, that it's almost like you can now be present and move forward because you know how to show love and be loved.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband said to me, like, about my mother, she said, he just said, I kind of think of her as Grammy. She's a wonderful grandmother, and she's repaired through that. And my relationship to her, I just call her Grammy. I don't think about the rest of the stuff. She's a wonderful grandmother to my daughter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that long moment. Those are moments of a lifetime, really encapsulated there. And everyone, check out Amy's book. Obviously, she is a very, not only wise, she is funny. She says it like it is. That's what her book is being talked about, how well researched it is, how humorous it is, and that she's a straight shooter, as you could tell, and she's been there. And she's trying to get the word out. So please share this book with everyone you know who could benefit from it. And let's all try to get Amy in virtual high school and college classrooms at this point as soon as possible. Amy, tell everyone where they can find your book, your writings, and all of the good stuff that you're doing.
So my website is the Trying Game and Fertility book. And if you're going to order it, Amazon is great for the Kindle or the Audible, but they might have delays in shipping. So I'd get it at bookshops.org, or maybe even at Barnes & Noble to, support on Amazon things. And all my writing is at my website.
Awesome. Amy, thank you for the conversation today and spreading the word and talking about such a difficult topic that we need to be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. That's it for our show for today. You know where to find us at www.parentfootprint.com. Tell people about the show, subscribe, spread the word, help us with our mission to create a more loving and compassionate world, one parent and one child at a time. Be the person you want your child to become. And as always, ask yourself the guiding question: what footprint do you want to leave?